It's out there, but you need to prevent your next hack attack today. We're going to find out how. What's up, FlowChat fam? Chris here, CEO and co-founder of FlowChat.com, and we're talking to real entrepreneurs that are getting real results. And today's episode will grab your attention because it goes a direction we've never gone before. We're going to uncharted territory and lands today on this, and it has to do with security. But I want to go talk about cybersecurity from a different perspective, one that grabbed my attention, actually affected me personally. We're going to be looking at why are you valuable to a hacker? In other words, what assets do you have as a business owner, as a leader, within your family? Why are you viewed as valuable from a hacker perspective? I don't think like a hacker, so I needed to be educated in this. I have a feeling you might be with me in this pursuit as well, and this is going to inform us of how to prevent all of this. But we need an expert to help us with this, and for today, it's Miss Natalie. Natalie, how's it going?
Great. How are you, Chris?
Awesome. Thank you for coming out, spending some time with our audience. We're gonna get into Natalie. Stay to the end. We're gonna hear more about her story. She has, I don't know, shared a couple stories with me. One of them will blow you away. But before we get into stories, what are hackers after?
Ultimately, they want to make money, right? So any part of you and any part of your online existence that can be monetized will be monetized.
Hmm.
That's that's really what it is. I don't want to say that's the only thing. There are hackers who do things because of I mean, there are state actors who are involved, crime, organized crime. There are just people who are trying to, get their street cred out. And so, how many people can you hack for that? But for most of us, and for most of what we're doing, it's really a very simple equation. It's how can I monetize my victims? That's it.
Got it. Okay, so very concisely put. Now, from the perspective of, business owner, people and their, personal lives, marriage, families, relationships, one of the assets you mentioned, we were kind of talking before, is your like social media followings. I've had my Instagram hacked, and they literally like cloned my account,
Mm-hmm.
like all the pictures exactly. They added like one little letter in there that nobody caught and used all the same content that we were posting, kept posting, and they have this all the same followers somehow. So they were DMing my entire audience. Friends and family that I haven't talked to for a while were messaging me, Chris, is this you? Is this you? I was like, no, what is what me? Like, what are you talking about? And I think even one of them, I know actually he ended up not spending money, thankfully. But I was like, I have no idea what, look at the account, it's different, it's not me. And so then I started being more proactive. It was a mess. So, the following is one of the assets. What are some of those other assets that they're looking to you leverage to monetize?
So I want to go back and describe what happened to you a little bit
Okay,
better.
yeah, let's do it.
People think of that as hacking, and it's not. It's not, that's actually called impersonating. They pretended they were
That makes
you,
sense.
right?
That's true.
Which,
Yeah.
and I'll tell you why it's relevant, because they haven't stolen all of your. They may have tried to steal your content and your clients or your followers, but they did not. So
Yeah.
that's impersonating. People talk about all the time I was hacked, but they were impersonated. That happens a lot
Hmm.
on social media all over place, especially on like TikTok. Um, the second kind is hacking. They've broken into your account and they are either posting stuff or they're running up your credit card if you're on Meta and doing ads or something like that. But you still have access to the account. You just start noticing some weird things. And the third thing is hijacking. That's when they've changed your locks,
Hmm.
right? That is when you are in really big trouble because you have just lost 15 years of social media and all of your followers and everything else. And that is depending on the value, right? So the folks who impersonated you on Instagram recognized that you were a growing influencer, that you had a good enough and large enough following that it was worth pretending that they were you. right? And so then they would try to monetize that by selling stuff to your client, to the people in your network or whatever the deal is. And I just had actually somebody who I was working with last year when she was hacked. She just sent me a message last week and she's like, "Hey, I'm connecting with you." And I went, "Wait a minute, I thought we were already connected, right? Because we've been working together almost a year, and in fact we had not connected." But that's the first thing I do is it's like, "Wait a second, this doesn't make sense. Why am I getting this? I thought I was already connected with Chris," right? um and so that should be just a habit that we get into. But when we're talking about being hijacked, right? If as soon as you realize that you might be hacked, change all your login information really fast, email address, your passwords, anything that's related to some related, because you are about to get completely hijacked. But once you're hijacked, it's really hard to get that back.
I'd
So what
imagine
is
for let's say
yeah.
like throw a ransom out there or something, and even then, I think I've heard some stories of people like paying it and then they still just don't give it anyway. And um,
So there could be ransom. There's so there could be ransom. I don't hear a lot about that. That happens more often when you've got ransomware and they've frozen your computer. And
hmm,
there's ways to get around that as well, but that's mostly because you didn't back up and you were kind of being lazy on stuff. And then therefore, when somebody freezes your computer with ransomware, um, you want to pay it. It is I don't want to say they've become all of a sudden ethical, but now they're giving companies time to pay the bill before they freeze it. They're like, "You're going to freeze in 48 hours if you don't pay this." And because what they realize is
so
that people couldn't
considerate.
afford it, like they can't access their computers to pay somebody off. And so that's what the like when they're going after really big fish. But I would never pay ransomware because there is no guarantee you're going to get it back. They're not going
Yeah.
to come to me and ask for millions of dollars. And so chances are then it's just somebody who's just going to lock me up, take my money because they want to get paid in Bitcoin always.
Hmm.
And then I'm done. And then I'm done. So,
Well, thank you for
um,
sharing those three different categories, impersonating, hacking, and hijacking, I think are the three that you're mentioning. So, yeah, it was definitely an impersonation. And just for anyone listening, watching out there, it was my Instagram account, and I don't have a big Instagram account. It's like maybe a couple thousand followers. I might even been less at the time. Yeah, I mean, you might not. Oh, that's not me. I don't have a big account. I didn't either. And it was really annoying. And I'm only sharing a couple of the conversations that I'm aware of. There might be other people, my friends or family, that they reached out to that I don't know, and they're not really like talking to me, and they were trying to sell them some whatever crypto thing. So
mhm.
I hope none of them bought it because obviously it was terrible, whatever it is. But okay, so it happens. This is one example. How do we prevent this from happening?
um, well, the first thing we really need to talk about is an understanding of what they want from you, right? So why were they trying to take over your account, Chris, or somebody who has a larger account? Um, the larger accounts are likely to have the resources to kind of go after. I don't know what FlowChat, like I don't know when this happened, right? So was FlowChat growing? Other people in your community were growing. They want in your case, they just wanted to make people think that they weren't connected with you so they could sell them crypto. When they are hijacking, and one of the terrifying statistics is that on average, 1.5 billion social media accounts are hacked each month. That would be
Wow.
B with a billion, right? It happens so often that I guarantee that there is not a single person who will ever watch this video that can say, "I've never met somebody who had a hacked account." I
I mean, it's
promise you.
over a billion. Like
A
that would
billion,
make sense.
1.4 billion. And that statistics was from 2 years ago. So I'm
Is that one
guessing
in
the number is
seven?
even
One in
higher.
eight? How many people are on planet Earth now? And not
One
everyone has
point,
social,
yeah,
so
there's
so
about 8 billion.
one out of six? I don't know.
8 billion. Yeah, it's a lot, right? Like, and we all have multiple, that's across all the platforms and stuff, but it's still a lot because that's what they know about, right? There's always people who
Fair.
just ignore and do stuff. So the numbers may very well be higher. And like I said, that stat was from 2 years ago, and numbers are now increasing exponentially, which is really distressing. And so when you're looking at someone who's hijacking, like one of the things I always ask when I do a talk is, what do you think they want from you? Oh, they want money. They want the business information. They want, my proprietary information. That's why I don't think I'm valuable. In
Yeah.
fact, not everybody wants that. Like, do they really care about your operations and your secret sauce? Running your business, running FlowChat is going to be way too much of a pain in the ass for somebody to do, right? Like, it's going to take a lot of work. What they would rather have, in your case, they may want your entire list of clients because there's money in that. But in fact, what they wanted from you personally, if they were to hijack your account or even impersonate it, is they want the social engineering, the proof. And so when they steal accounts completely, right? They want to be able to spend your money to promote their crypto or gaming scams that they have going on. Those things are really popular. I once was so when I get someone tries to connect with me, I always review an account. Every single, you know, like when you're on Instagram and TikTok, people just follow you, but on Facebook and LinkedIn, I always check out people's accounts. And one day somebody came in and he had, or who was listed as a he, 4.8 thousand, almost 5,000 connections on Facebook. And this was back when you capped out at 5,000.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is really weird because I don't see any content. So I accepted his friend request.
Hmm.
And then I went back in, which I am apt to do, and there was literally no content. And so I ended up unfriending and blocking. But what happened was this person probably had an account that had been lasting because it was started, I don't know, like 8 years earlier, 10 years earlier, had this big account and it got hijacked. And what they were doing was they were in the process of cleaning it out and they were going to put a new name with a new picture and new stuff. And they were probably going to monetize it. They want your audience because then they all of a sudden I have a big following, right? This now allows me to do more stuff and gives me credibility. Or I'm going to sell stuff to people, or I'm going to start catfishing everyone in your network. Like there's a lot of stuff. Like we think that all they want is that valuable, like what we think is valuable, our social security numbers, our birthdays, our, name of our children or whatever it is. Sometimes it's really just simple. Maybe they were going to clean that all out and sell that at then, right? Because this is
Yeah.
5,000 things, is a valuable account. Sell it for a few $100, right? Wow, that's really awesome. I already have 5,000 followers and I haven't done any work for it,
Yeah.
right? So it's like when we think about cybersecurity, we need to think about how anybody can use our information. And so what we don't think is particularly valuable is oftentimes a lot more valuable depending on who you're talking to, right? Um, the
So
Russian
our
mafia doesn't care
competitors
about
don't
your
just
2,000 things.
yeah, our
Yeah.
competitors just don't want the data. Hackers do too. So I appreciate it. What like how do you mentioning these things, bringing light to these things? What are some best practices to prevent them from gaining access?
Well, you need to be well, there's two things I would say to you. First, um three things I would say to you. One, no one ever has access to your social media except you. It is 2024, and every major social media platform has an option for a social media manager to manage your social media without actually accessing your account. Every single one of them. Pinterest, TikTok, Instagram, well, Instagram and all the meta stuff, YouTube, LinkedIn. You don't ever have to give anybody your login information anymore. And trust me, you do not want to. The second thing is do not reuse passwords, please. And don't make them simple. There's a new AI tool that's available that is that can work as a relatively simple password, and you may think it's yours is fancy and special, but unless it is completely unique to everything. But if it's less than 12 characters, it can break your password in under a couple minutes.
That's amazing. It's
Okay.
funny.
And most,
So I've used a quick note on that. I've used LastPass for a while. I'm bringing this up on purpose. But my character minimum is 13 characters. I didn't know that 12 was like the magic number. Maybe you're like, well, it takes a few minutes for
16.
12 characters.
16 is the magic number. You really want everything.
Oh,
I never do less than 18. I often do as high as, and I never do the same number. So if anybody were ever to go in there,
uh,
obviously there's only so many numbers between 18 and 32, but I just pick like, oh, I feel like doing 27 characters today. I feel like doing whatever, make them longer.
interesting. So
And
you're saying 16. That's a good tip right there.
minimum
16
16.
character minimum as a password. I mean,
Absolutely.
there's LastPass, OnePass. Do you recommend any of these techs or no?
I've been using LastPass since way, way, way back. I've thought about switching, but they all pretty much do the same thing. If we have folks here who are trying to save money, a good one is Bitwarden. Now has a version that is, a lot of them have a free version, but that one I think is, you can use it on multiple devices, which a lot of, like, LastPass no longer allows you to use the free version on multiple devices. But I taught my kids how to use it on LastPass, and so I just want to keep them on the straight and narrow to do this. So that's why I use it.
That makes sense.
And
Okay,
I
so
don't have
there's
a problem. We can talk about the hacking at some other point because people are like, "Oh my god, they got hacked." But you know, pro tip: that was because somebody from LastPass accessed their work account from home.
Okay, so what's with that? Like if, for everyone listening, watching, and like, well, I have my office and I work from home, like how do I, like how do we manage that scenario to not be hacked?
You need to be, I joke around, I teach people how to be paranoid. That's exactly what you need to do. And so, for example, I have kids. I've got teenagers. They're much better now, but when they were 10 and 12 years old, it was like, hey, you want the login information? And now all you have to do is, tap your phone and everybody's got the log information. It's not a big deal. And so, for at least in the US, most of our internet access routers give us the option of bringing in at least the home Wi-Fi and a visitor Wi-Fi. And I noticed several of the large companies also do a third one for IoT, which is Internet of Things. That would be your talking refrigerator and your dishwasher and all the stuff that's connected to the internet. IoT is notoriously terrible because you can't necessarily change the password. So I would always tell people, do not put that on your main
Okay.
login. Don't, the only people who should be using your main login are people you absolutely trust. And if you've got kids, that's not them. Right? Like, we
No
do
trust for
not
the
trust our
kids.
children. Or if you have a partner and they game a lot, I wouldn't trust them either. Put them on the guest Wi-Fi, right? We have to just make sure that we're doing all of these things. If you're someone who's in a high value position, right? You're doing FlowChat, this is your side gig, or this, you're CEO of your company, and there's somebody who might want to do this, you have to be aware that, and this really sounds crazy paranoid, but let's take this LastPass, and I don't have a guarantee that this is how it happened. But somebody's at home checking out and just being like, we really want to get into LastPass, so we're gonna make sure that we are wraparounding the engineer. So now they know where you're home. That's easy enough to do, right? Boy, these engineers are really good, but I noticed that the 12-year-old always plays with this 11-year-old down the street, and the 11-year-old has terrible security at home, but maybe they do the Wi-Fi. So they jump on, I wish I was kidding. They jump on the Wi-Fi, they jump onto the other person's Wi-Fi, connect to the kid's phone that they're all carrying around at that age, and then when they go to the LastPass house or whoever owns the thing,
They're on that
and now they've
network.
jumped onto your Wi-Fi, and now
So
they're
once they're
in
on their Wi-Fi, they can access
everything, anything that's connected to the Wi-Fi,
any device, and if they can get on the
any
device, then
device that's connected to
they can harvest whatever's on the device.
yep. That's why you don't want your IoT to be on your main router ever.
So is there like a way to I guess what's once they're on, they're on. Okay.
Well, yes and no, right? Because once you start changing passwords, I'll tell you, if you're ever worried, make sure you change your password for your router, because at the end of the day, someone needs to be able to access your router even when they're in, right? If you have a router at home, and you change the password to your router, everything that was connected is no longer connected.
So best practice might be like change your router password once a month.
I statistically, like, I would change your router password and then never share it is what I would do. I wouldn't change it once a month.
I like
It's
that
too
answer
much.
better.
I just my goal is always to teach people, like, we don't want to have to overthink things. So, like, fix it and then go away, right? So learning, there was this idea, and it still exists in some places, where you have to have change your passwords every 3 months. Well, when they started studying it, they realized that somebody would have this, like, password and then add an exclamation point and then add a number one, and then, so it was the same password with just a
Yeah,
moderate
small
change.
variation. Yeah.
And so instead, we teach people to use a password generator and password management programs, a separate password management program, not like Google storing your,
Is that
the
one
the
bad?
Google account, right? And
Oh, is
so
it? I don't know.
is what? That's
Is
not a
is Google bad?
I would not use Google. No, Google actually, from a security point of view, is good.
Oh, just their
But
password feature. Like
yeah,
they're
yeah, I'm just talking about
I
the
see it
password
all the
manager.
time and I like never hit save. Like, oh, say like
No,
Chrome. I think
never
it's actually
save.
Chrome,
Do
not
not
Google.
save. In fact, go in there and tell it to shut it off. Just stop asking. You can do that, and it'll never pop up again.
Interesting. Okay. And I think
Yeah.
Apple just released like in their new like or earlier this week and they're like for all their devices, they have like their own LastPass now.
Yep.
So they've had Keychain for a while. I've never used that one either.
So the problem with that is Keychain is not readily available across all of your.
Right.
So if you are 100% Mac and you only use Safari, you're fine. But if you're jumping onto Chrome, if you also have a desktop or a laptop that's not an Apple device, it doesn't cross over as well. And this breaks my heart because I know that Apple is, like, really at the forefront of privacy issues. It doesn't have great it doesn't have as good security ratings as some of the other tools, like,
Hmm.
believe it or not, LastPass, at least until last year when they got hacked.
Cool. We're getting well, I think one pass, like the other I think the other ones have all been hacked too. I think they're all, but it's like that means different things. But I appreciate you going through some real life examples, sharing with us like, hey, like why am I valuable? Like so therefore what assets should I even be mindful of what to protect. And then lastly, we've been getting into how to protect those things. For people leaning in and wanting to know more about this particular topic and protecting themselves, their business, and their family, where's the best place to find you?
The best place to find me is me personally on LinkedIn. I'm there all the time. But I am also, my website is cybersec for humans. Cybersec, SEC, the number 4 humans.com. That's also my handle for socials on every platform that I have been able to save that for: LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and so on.
I love it. Thanks. So yeah, that's Natalie Berthe on LinkedIn. And then it's cybersec4humans.com. She is helping mostly, business owners and founders with cybersecurity. So it's got that tint to it. She knows what we're thinking, what we're wanting, what we're needing, and helping with all that. So um, I appreciate you coming on today and
My
sharing
pleasure.
this info with the audience.
My pleasure.
Awesome. And I appreciate you guys, your time and your attention where we talk to real entrepreneurs that are getting real results. In this case, Natalie is in business just like us, and she got intrigued with this whole security piece and went down the rabbit hole. And I was like, whoa, I could feel the passion in her voice when we were connecting and other calls. I was like, all right, I think some of these things would be really valuable for you. You're working so hard on your business and building things to have these assets compromised or taken from you is just an unnecessary setback that can be avoided. So we'll be bringing real content to you, valuable content like this in the future. So be sure to stick around for the next one. Appreciate y'all.
Thank you.